how did you initially write The Shack?
How did I write The Shack?
This is what I'm here for. How'd you write The Shack? How'd you get the idea for it? How did you
I
get
love this question. It's got nothing to do with infallibility or anything. So, in a nutshell, January 4th, 92, Kim catches me in a 3-month affair with one of her best friends. That collapses my world. All my performance orientation, everything becomes visible. And I have to choose whether to face her or kill myself. And I don't know. I don't know how I made the choice. Even to this day, it's a miracle to me that I made the choice to face her and not kill myself. Because I guess I was so tired of running away that even suicide was I recognized it as a way to run away. It was the last way to run away, and I was done. I was done running away if I could find that there was a possibility of change. And so I faced her. That started an 11-year process of dealing with all my stuff. And the first moments that I faced Kim, and I say this with all the gratitude that I can muster in my heart. The fiery fury of her love saved my life. And she just didn't become some meek, mild, submissive Christian woman. She was the very hellfire of God, and came at me with everything she had. And my first response to that was, if we're going to do this, I have to tell you all my secrets, because secrets have been killing me my whole life. And it took me 4 days to tell her all my secrets, at the end of which she just was destroyed. She just said, I'll never believe another word that comes out of your mouth the rest of your life. But she would tell you that she believed, even beneath all that fury, that I'd hit the bottom. And part of the evidence of that is that I never pointed a finger in her direction. I never went, some of this is your stuff, right? It didn't even cross my mind. I didn't care. I didn't care if she did this right or wrong or any of that stuff. I needed to face whatever it was that she brought to the table. And there was no sense that she had to do it perfectly. She would tell you she didn't do it perfectly. I would tell you that I don't care. And so it was just learning how to do the next right thing. That was all. Do the next right thing. And that meant working. I worked 3 jobs. That meant facing the people and telling them what I'd done, the family. Her first was her dad, who lived with us for 17 years. And he is a gentle, sweet man. His name is Willard. We all called him Willie, and the Willie in the shack is Kim's dad. And when I told him, I had defense mechanisms because of my dad to brutality, a fist or a fury. I don't have any defense mechanisms for kindness except to run, but I was done running. And so I just watched my words break his heart and flow down his face. And then I told Kim's family, and I told my family, and then I told our friendships, and then I told people that I had interacted with in the community. And so we never made the adultery the new secret. And I pulled the yellow pages off the shelf, and I went in front of total strangers, and for the first time in my life, I said, can you help me? I'd always been an island. And that started it was supposed to be a 1.5-year process of therapy, and it turned out to be 9 months. And 4 months into it, I almost killed myself. It was so hard. But that's also when I began to learn how to stay inside the grace of a moment and not future trip. And because I didn't have enough energy to go past the moment. And it was incremental step by incremental step. 11 years at the end of 2004. And there's a lot to that we could talk about, but bird's eye snapshot. By that time I had men in my life. By that time I'd allowed men to be in my life. By that time I'd learned how to keep my mouth shut. I'd learned how not to hide behind the false identities of being the strong person, being the smart person. And I'd watched my theology just get absolutely obliterated. And yet, the things which I'd been wrestling with that I thought might be true since I was in my teens made it through the fire. And all of a sudden, things were coalescing all over the place. And a lot of what I talk about these days comes out of that. And then 11 years, and the 12th year turns, and you know, Kim had been saying to me for a while, she'd say every once in a while, you know, someday as a gift for our kids, would you just write in one place how you think, because you think outside the box? And I never felt healthy enough to do that until 2005 flipped over. And that's when joy became finally a constant companion, where I wasn't leaving, but I was staying present. And that's also when I looked at my life and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm one of the healthiest people that I know. Like by then I have no addictions at all. I had no secrets. For the first time I tapped into bits and pieces of what it must have been like to be a child. Like a healthy child. Joy had become a constant companion. And miraculously, I was the same person in every situation. Whether I was in a hotel by myself or whether I was with strangers or people that I knew, I was the same person. And it was the year I turned 50, and it was a year of Jubilee. It was like when all debts are forgiven. It was sort of this internal kind of massive realization. And then I thought, I can do this. I'm ready to do this thing that Kim's been asking. Later she told me like 4 to 6 pages or 5 to 7 pages, but I didn't remember that part. And I didn't have anything else to give the kids for Christmas, and so on the train mostly I started writing this story, and it's just like a river. Just like a river. I worked all the time, but one Saturday I had off and Kim was gone with the kids, and I started at 8 in the morning, and by 8:30 that night when they came back I'd written 4 complete chapters, the 4th of which is 15 Festival of Friends, which is still in the book the way I wrote it the day I wrote it, never touched in a rewrite or editing process. Kim comes back and she basically says, so what happened to you? And I said, you know, I stepped out the back porch and this river took me downriver. And 25 miles later, spat me out naked and bleeding. That's what the day was like. And interesting, our son, Andrew, who was in university for mechanical engineering, later he had an MBA and then became a Portland police officer. But it was chapter 15 that nailed him. That chapter. And it was one that was really telling about my own life, because I was standing outside the community of celebration up on the hill, but at least with the Holy Spirit. And Jesus walks into that massive celebration. And from that distance, he turns and he and Mackenzie catch eyes, and Mackenzie hears him say, hey, Matt, I'm especially fond of you. And my son calls and says, Dad, I've been in the shower crying for a couple hours, and I heard him say that to me. You know? I made my 15 copies. They'd done everything that I'd asked it to do. I'd given it to the kids at Christmas. So that's how it happened. I wrote it. So Mackenzie Allen Phillips spells Matt from his initials, and Melissa Ann Phillips spells map and her initials. And they're both two different kinds of maps. Me as the adult trying to deal with the damage and the losses, and Missy, the lost child in me, as well as my sister's 5-year-old that was killed the day after her 5th birthday. And so all of these things coalesce. There's lots of little secret things in the book that my kids would hear and know, and you wouldn't necessarily, but that's where it came from. And then God's sense of humor. Here we are. And the beauty is that everything that mattered to me was already in place before I wrote it. And the invitation to walk on the holy grounds of other people's stories, that's been an absolute gift to all of us, to me and my family and my friends. And I think that's why it's done what it's done. It's not a religious book. It's a human book, you know, and it touched people. I like to say, because secular 26 publishers turned it down, half faith-based, half secular. None of them could figure out where to put it in a bookstore, which was a big deal from what I understand. But the secular people thought it had too much Jesus, and the Christian people thought it was too edgy. So they all turned it down. And the way that I like to think of it is that the world is full of people stuck between edgy and Jesus. And they didn't know it. They didn't know it. And so this continues to roll on. It just took on a life of its own.